You ever agree to something that seemed harmless at the time, only to realize too late just how wrong you were? That's how I ended up spending a week in a hotel that didn't want to be understood. The gig sounded simple enough: a temporary caretaker position while the building transitioned to new ownership. The owners were supposedly rebranding the place. The staff had already been dismissed. My job was to stay on site, monitor the utilities, keep the place from being vandalized, and report any unusual incidents. That last part should have raised a flag. But I was broke, 2 months behind on rent, and the hotel offered free room and board with an envelope full of cash waiting at checkout. They even let me pick my room. The place was called the Marrow House Hotel, an old Victorian-era structure nestled on a remote cliffside in upstate New York. Driving up, I felt like I was approaching a painting rather than a real location. Mist curling over steep hills, the massive iron gate yawning open at my arrival, and the building itself looming with cracked windows and black shutters like lidded eyes. Inside, it smelled of old wood and lemon polish, too clean for something so aged. The lobby was cavernous, all chandeliers and faded red carpets, no check-in staff, just a silver bell on the counter and a small handwritten note taped beneath it. Caretaker. Your key is in room 217. Do not stay in any other room. Follow the enclosed rules exactly. Management. I stood there for a while, reading the note over and over. I'd expected maybe a clipboard, a tour, or at least a phone call, but the hotel was dead silent. No music, no hum of ventilation, just the occasional creak of wood like the place was adjusting to my presence. I found room 217 on the second floor. The hallway was long and lined with identical brass-doored rooms. My footsteps echoed like I was walking inside a cathedral. My room key was an old skeleton type, the kind you see in black and white films. It slid into the lock with a satisfying clunk. Inside, the room was nice, cleaner than I expected. The bed was turned down. A small fire crackled in the hearth like someone had just been there. On the desk was a manila envelope with caretaker protocol scrawled across the front. Inside were 7 rules written in bold black ink. Only sleep in room 217. Do not attempt to enter or explore other rooms after dark. If you hear music playing from the 5th floor, do not investigate. No one should be on that floor. Room 304 is not locked for your safety. It is locked for its safety. If the door is open, leave the hotel immediately. If the elevator doors open on a floor you didn't request, close them again. Do not step out. If a bellhop knocks on your door, do not answer. There are no staff. Do not touch the painting in the lobby. Do not look at it for more than 10 seconds. You must leave the building for at least 1 hour at dawn every morning. If you don't, the hotel will know. That last one sent a strange chill up my spine. The hotel will know. Who was I even working for? There was no phone number, no emergency contact, not even a brand name on the stationery. Just that eerie word, management. I spent my first night trying not to overthink it. Maybe it was just some psychological trick, like onboard theater meant to keep me alert, some paranoid executive's idea of a safety net. I even laughed to myself about rule number 5. No bellhops, got it, thanks. But when the fireplace suddenly extinguished itself around 2 a.m., not with a flicker, but like someone had sucked the oxygen out of the room, I stopped laughing. And later that night, just as I was drifting to sleep, I heard the ding of the elevator echo through the empty halls. Then came the soft hum of a violin from somewhere high above me, the 5th floor. I stayed in bed, every muscle locked, breath shallow. I had no intention of breaking the rules, not on the first night. But deep down, I already knew the truth. This place wasn't empty. I didn't sleep much after that first night. Even with the thick curtains drawn and the fire rekindled, every creak in the hallway, every distant echo kept me alert. The hotel was too quiet in the wrong kind of way, like it wasn't just abandoned, but listening. I forced myself up before dawn as rule number 7 instructed. The moment I stepped outside, I felt lighter, like I'd been underwater and didn't realize it until I surfaced. The mist outside was thick and cold. I wandered the overgrown garden paths for about an hour, glancing up at the tall windows where no lights should be on, and none were. When I returned inside, the air in the lobby was still again, not dead, but expectant. I tried to go about my morning like a normal guest, made instant coffee, did a sweep of the first floor to check the windows and locks, nothing out of place, except for a framed oil painting near the check-in counter, the one the rule warned me about. I hadn't looked directly at it the day before. It was too large, gaudy, and oddly placed, hung slightly crooked and surrounded by what looked like claw marks in the wood-paneled wall behind it. Today, I let my eyes linger. It was a landscape of the hotel itself. Same building, same cliffside, but the sky above it was black. Not night black, but void black. The trees around the structure were leafless and bent as if pulled toward the building. And in every window, there were small, pale hands pressed against the glass. I blinked. Gone. Just the hotel. Normal painting again. I backed away and didn't look at it again. The rest of the day was uneventful. I read an old paperback from the hotel's tiny library and ate soup from a thermos I'd brought with me. Still, I kept hearing odd clicks and thuds from above, floorboards shifting, furniture dragging. I convinced myself it was the building settling. Old places like this make noise. It was the only explanation I was willing to entertain. That night, just before midnight, I decided to do a patrol of the second and third floors. Nothing in the rules said I couldn't explore those levels, only that I stay out of other rooms after dark and avoid the fifth floor. Everything was fine until the elevator doors opened. I'd called for the second floor, pressed the worn brass button, and waited. When the elevator dinged and the doors slid apart, I stepped in without thinking. That was my first mistake. As the doors began to close behind me, I noticed something. The floor dial had changed. There were no numbers, just symbols, circles, crosses, half moons, and one mark that looked disturbingly like an open eye. I hit the door open button, but it didn't respond. The elevator trembled once, then began to descend. Not rise, descend. I hadn't pressed anything. The buttons had no markings to guide me, just that steady descent into something below the hotel. I tried the buttons again, hit the one where G should have been. The lift stopped, then reversed. It rose fast, too fast, until it suddenly shuddered to a halt. The doors opened onto a hallway I didn't recognize. Long, dark. The walls were black marble, wet-looking, with sconces that flickered with pale green flames. The smell hit me immediately. Damp stone, sulfur, and rot. And I swear the carpet leading into the corridor was breathing, rising and falling in slow, shallow pulses. Then I saw him. A man stood about 20 feet down the hall. Pale suit, bowler hat, completely still. I stared at him. He raised a hand, slowly, and pointed at me. I mashed the door close button until the doors slid shut. The elevator shook as it began moving again, slower this time, groaning like something was dragging us upward with reluctance. When it stopped, the doors opened on the second floor. The normal second floor. I stepped out, legs like water, and stumbled back to room 217, slamming the door and locking it behind me. That night, I barely slept, and when I did, I dreamed of elevators with no exits, descending forever into dark hallways filled with pointed men in suits. I was beginning to understand something about the hotel. It didn't just obey strange rules, it tested you with them. And if you slipped, even once, it opened a door. The next morning, I didn't leave the hotel at dawn. It wasn't that I forgot, I didn't. I lay awake in bed, staring at the crack in the ceiling, my body too tense to move, and I just didn't. Some part of me was testing the rule, daring it to matter. Maybe I thought the threat wasn't real. Maybe I wanted to see what the hotel would do if I disobeyed. Big mistake. At 6:02 a.m., my room went cold. Not gradually, not like a breeze or chill creeping in. 1 second it was normal, the next it was winter. My breath misted. Frost crept across the inside of the windows like spider webs blooming in fast motion. And then came the knock. 3 slow, deliberate raps on the door. I didn't move. I didn't answer. Because I remembered rule number 5. If a bellhop knocks on your door, do not answer. There are no staff. But I hadn't broken that rule. This was something else. A punishment, maybe. A second knock, this time louder, firmer. The kind of knock that says, I know you're in there. I stayed still under the blanket, not even daring to breathe. Then came the sound of a key in the lock. I shot up in bed. My heart was pounding so hard it hurt. The doorknob twisted, clicked, rattled, but didn't turn all the way. Then I heard it, a voice on the other side, calm, measured, male. Sir, you forgot your morning walk. The words shouldn't have chilled me, but they did, because they were said with absolute certainty, like he knew I'd ignored the rule, like he'd been watching. I didn't respond. Sir, the voice said again, it's time to go. The doorknob jiggled once more, then it stopped. Silence. I sat there frozen for what must have been 10 minutes before I got the nerve to check the hallway. I looked through the peephole first. Empty. I unlocked the door and opened it just enough to see. Nothing. No sign of anyone. But about 5 feet from my door was something new. A silver luggage cart, the kind bellhops use. Sitting alone in the hallway, draped in something dark. I stepped into the hall. The thing draped over the cart was a black bellhop's jacket, neatly folded, and on the cart sat a small, unlabeled envelope. Inside, a single note. The rules are not flexible. You are expected to follow them. There will be no further reminders. I folded the note, hands trembling, and went back into my room. This time, I didn't leave for hours. I kept expecting more knocks, colder, but none came. Around noon, I decided to check the cameras in the hotel's maintenance room. I figured there had to be security feeds somewhere, and if someone was screwing with me, I wanted proof. The maintenance room was behind the front desk, tucked between the supply closet and a panel of rusted breaker switches. The door wasn't locked, just swollen from age and disuse. Inside was a bank of dusty monitors stacked like bricks. Most of them were off, and the few that were on displayed grainy black and white footage of various hallways. I scanned each screen. Nothing moved, until one of them flickered. The hallway outside room 304. That's when I remembered rule number 3. Room 304 is not locked in your safety. It is locked in its safety. If the door is open, leave the hotel immediately. And on the monitor, I could see the door. Open. Just a crack. The screen flickered again and I could swear the angle shifted. like the camera moved slightly tilted, and for the briefest moment, something crossed the screen. A shape. Thin, hunched, fast, gone before I could process it. I left the maintenance room in a hurry. I didn't want to know more. I didn't want to look again. I hurried back to 217, locked the door, and sat in the corner with the fire on full blast. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I didn't go near 304. Not that night. Not yet. But I knew the hotel was escalating. It had given me a warning, and whatever was inside that room, it wanted out. I lasted 2 more nights without touching another rule. I woke early, left the building before dawn like I was supposed to, ignored the elevator completely, and kept away from the painting in the hallway where room 304 sat like a bad memory. And for those 2 days the hotel behaved. No notes, no knocks, just the silence of an empty building waiting for something. But on the 5th night, I heard the music. It was just after midnight. I'd gone to the library room to read, an attempt to pretend I was still in control of my nerves. I chose a random hardcover, some Victorian ghost story I'd never heard of, and sat near the unlit fireplace. I heard the first notes faintly, like someone tuning a violin in another room. I froze, then remembered rule number 2. If you hear music playing from the 5th floor, do not investigate. No one should be on that floor. I snapped the book shut and stood up, every muscle suddenly tense. The music grew louder. Not beautiful music, not even eerie. Off-key, unstable, like someone playing by memory but forgetting notes as they went. It was coming from above. It wasn't just a violin anymore. There were multiple instruments now. A warped cello groaning like furniture being dragged, a piano plinking out notes at random, high and hollow, and underneath it all, something else. Breathing. Something on that floor was breathing along with the rhythm. I retreated to room 217, shut the door, and locked it. But the sound didn't fade. It grew clearer, louder, more structured, not random anymore. It sounded like a song, or at least some twisted version of one. It had rises and falls, even tempo. That's when the floor above me creaked. Not just the building shifting. Steps. I stood beneath the ceiling, staring up as the creaking passed directly overhead, then stopped, right above my room. I backed up to the far wall, breathing shallow. Then, a violin began playing again, but this time it was different. It wasn't distorted. It was beautiful. So beautiful it made my skin prickle. The kind of sound that doesn't belong in the physical world. The kind of sound that feels like it's being played inside your mind. I don't know how long I listened, maybe minutes, maybe longer. All I know is that eventually I realized I was standing at my door, hand on the knob, about to open it. I yanked my hand back like I'd touched a hot stove, heart hammering. The music stopped. So did the creaking. I stumbled backward to the bed, trying to shake it off, but I could still feel it, like the melody had embedded itself in the walls, the bed frame, the air. Something on the 5th floor wanted me to come up, and I nearly had. It almost worked. The next morning, I went straight to the lobby after my walk and scanned the painting again. I couldn't help it. I needed to know if anything had changed. It had. One of the windows in the painted hotel on the 5th floor was glowing yellow. The rest of the building was still black. But that one room was lit from within. I turned away quickly, sick to my stomach. The hotel wasn't just reacting to rule breaking, it was inviting, luring me in with things that felt beautiful, nostalgic, personal, and I had no idea how long I could keep resisting. Back in room 217, I found something on my pillow. Not a mint, a sheet of music, no staff, no footprints, no sound of a door opening, just the music written in long, looping notes I didn't recognize. And at the top of the page, one word, handwritten in elegant ink. Yours. I didn't touch it again. I burned the page in the fireplace, even though part of me screamed not to. And when it turned to ash, the faintest trace of that violin melody played, one final note, and then silence. I didn't sleep at all that night, because now I understand the game. The hotel didn't punish you with fear. It seduces you with things you couldn't help but love. I don't remember falling asleep after the music burned. But when I woke on the 6th morning, it was still dark out, and I was standing in the hallway, barefoot. The door to room 217 was open behind me, light spilling out across the faded carpet. My breath was misting, like the air had been pulled from my lungs. Then I saw it. Room 304, wide open, just down the hall. The same door I'd seen half cracked on the camera feed, now fully ajar, like it had been waiting for me all along. For a few seconds, I just stood there, staring. The hallway felt impossibly long, even though it wasn't. Time warped. The sound fell away. I couldn't hear my own footsteps, not even the wind outside. Then, from deep inside room 304, something moved. Not a shadow, not a trick of the light. A hand, pale, long-fingered, sliding back behind the doorway, slow and deliberate. I stumbled backward, heart thudding against my ribs. I didn't run. I couldn't. My limbs felt leaden. My instincts screamed to retreat, but my body was paralyzed with fear or awe or something in between. Then the whisper came. Software whispered like a draft slipping under a door frame. "Come in." I turned and bolted. I didn't go back to room 217. I didn't stop for shoes. I ran barefoot down the staircase, skipping steps, gripping the railing so hard I gave myself splinters. I sprinted across the lobby and threw open the front doors. Outside, the wind hit me like a slap. Sharp, real, alive. I stood in the front courtyard, bent over and gasping, trying to remind myself where I was, what I was. Then I turned back to look at the hotel. The windows on the 3rd floor were glowing. Not just one, all of them. Every window lining the hallway near room 304, now lit from within by flickering orange light, like firelight or candles burning far too hot. And behind one window, dead center, I saw a face, not pressed against the glass, not even fully visible, just watching and smiling. I didn't go back inside until full daylight broke. The lights were off by then. The windows are dark again. The front doors opened without resistance and the lobby looked as it always had. But the air had changed, heavier, thicker. I forced myself to return to room 217. The door was still open. The lights are still on, but the note was gone. The envelope of instructions vanished from the desk. I searched every drawer, checked under the mattress, behind the curtains. Nothing. As if the rules no longer mattered. Like the hotel had decided I was already playing the game, whether I wanted to or not. I spent the next few hours trying to convince myself to leave, to walk out and never look back. I packed my bag, I held my car keys, I stood by the lobby doors. But I didn't go, because I knew if I left now, I wouldn't make it out. That thought wasn't paranoia, it was a certainty. Like the hotel itself had installed it in my brain, feeding it through the walls, the floorboards, the rules I no longer had access to. So I waited. I waited through the day, through the long crawl of dusk into another night, and at midnight I heard the elevator ding. Once, twice, then silence. I didn't move from my bed. I didn't turn on the lights. I just stared at the ceiling and listened. No footsteps this time. No whispering. Just the sound of something breathing behind my door. Deep, slow, wet, and in that breath I heard words not meant for human understanding. Not language exactly, but meaning. It was awake now. Whatever had been locked behind room 304, behind the painting, behind the rules, it was awake. And tomorrow was my last day. The 7th day began with silence. No birds, no wind, no elevator dings or whispered warnings. Just silence, as thick as concrete. I'd stayed up all night, gripping the fireplace poker like it could protect me from whatever had started breathing on the other side of my door. It never entered. It didn't have to. The air in the room had become toxic with its presence. My eyes watered. My skin itched. I swear I aged a year in those hours, sitting there, waiting. At first light, I stood. It was time to leave. The bag I'd packed the day before sat untouched at the foot of the bed. The car keys were cold in my hand. I didn't bother checking out. There was no front desk clerk, no management to say goodbye to, just the final rule etched into my mind like a scar. Leave before dawn. I left room 217 and walked the hallway one last time. The door to room 304 was closed again, locked, but burn marks lined the threshold like something had tried to crawl out, dragging heat and ash behind it. I didn't stop. I didn't breathe. I made it down the staircase and through the lobby without seeing anyone, though I could feel them, dozens of unseen eyes watching from behind every surface. The floorboards pulsed beneath my feet. The chandelier swayed without wind. The painting by the desk was gone. In its place, a mirror. And in that mirror, I didn't see my reflection. I saw the 5th floor. Hallways of open doors and pale shapes peeking out from each one. Some crouched on all fours. Others stretched unnaturally tall, with arms that bent backward like marionette strings. They didn't move, but they saw me. The moment I stepped outside, the hotel exhaled behind me. A long, tired sigh, like it was disappointing I'd made it out. The car was waiting where I left it, covered in dew, still cold. I threw my bag in the back seat, turned the ignition, and didn't look back. Not until I reached the town. There, at the gas station on the outskirts, I stopped. I needed to see it in daylight, to make sense of what had happened. But when I turned toward the winding road that led to the Marrow House Hotel, there was nothing. No road, no trees, no cliffs, just an empty field, overgrown and humming with cicadas. I asked the attendant behind the counter if he knew of the hotel up the ridge. He looked at me blankly. "There's no hotel up there," he said. "Never has been. That land's been empty since the quarry shut down." He rang me up for a bottle of water and didn't ask more questions. When I got back in my car, I pulled out my phone to check the photos I'd taken during my stay. The selfies, the room shots, the note with the 7 rules, gone, every single one, all replaced with black squares, static, glitches that made no sense. And then, one video I didn't remember recording. I tapped it. The screen went black, then showed a flickering hallway. The camera moved slowly toward an open door. Room 304. From inside came music. Familiar, broken music. My voice whispered from behind the lens. I think I'm ready to open it now." The video ended. I deleted it and turned off the phone. I don't know how that clip got there. I don't want to know. For a few weeks, life resumed. Kind of. I slept more, ate again, worked odd jobs. I told myself it was over, that I'd made it out. until last night. I came home to find a single envelope slid under my door. No return address, no postage, just one sentence, typed in that same serif font burned into my memory. We hope your stay at the Marrow House was satisfactory. Your room will be ready again soon. And beneath it, scrawled in pen, rule number 8, never speak of the hotel. I burned the letter, but I've spoken of it now, and I can already feel the air changing. The mirror in my hallway was blank this morning. Now it shows a hallway, and a door marked 304, open,